I've read that you grew up in a musical family. So as a kid, what are you listening to? How is music finding you from an outside, like outside the family?
Um, Outside the family. Yeah, well, it was pretty much all from outside the family because um grew up in a musical family, but it was all classical
Yeah,
music and church music. So the when you grow up in an immigrant household, um there are certain things that are, you're in school with, if you're in public school and if you're in, not a real remote area, in some ways your childhood is like every other American kid's,
hmm,
every other, there is no normal, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
And then in other ways, your childhood is completely different because people who had lived in the States for multiple generations, a lot of them, their parents have, if not a record collection, at least a whole lifetime of American music that they've listened to.
yep, yep.
And if your parents did not grow up here, then that may not be the case. So I didn't even fully realize the impact of that until I was well into adulthood. That
Interesting.
it's like there were things about it that I was observing along the way or that I was self-conscious about, but I didn't really see it from a big picture standpoint till much later, that like all these other kids had, um it was built into them from the time from infancy.
Yeah.
Their parents singing along with Beatles songs or the Rolling Stones or Hank Williams or whatever, and hearing those songs in their car, and
And the
their parents
machines are
singing
probably
along.
going to be tuned into those things too. Whereas in your
I'm
household,
sorry.
the machines, the TV, the radio are going to be tuned into
Exactly.
American music, and whereas you maybe not so much in your house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, the only records that we had for our stereo system were classical, and we only had a few of them. Um, in the car, we pretty much just listened to the classical station, which was also the NPR station, or Christian
Yeah.
radio, for my parents, my mom. And so I remember in middle school buying like a Beatles tape that was like a collection of, like it was some kind of like 60s collection of
Yeah.
Beatles top songs. And that was when I learned those songs,
Wow.
and it didn't occur to me till much later that I was having to study and learn those because it was this missing piece of Americana culture, even though it's not even American,
Yeah.
um, that everybody around me took for granted, that
That's such
just
an interesting
wasn't
way
part of
of
my
looking at it.
context,
Yeah.
like,
Do you think the impact of that was more of an impact on you rather than just a person that grew up here, parents are from here? You know,
oh, it's
like that
it's
music
true
is
because
just
they're
part of
playing
their
catch up
life.
all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all of us, even if you're a, your parents came over on the your ancestors came over on the Mayflower, like even if even if you've been here the whole time, like quote unquote,
Yeah.
not acknowledging indigenous people, um, then I think as humans, we're kind of always self-conscious about the things that we don't know and that we're expected to know.
Yep.
People get self-conscious about lying about having read that book or having heard that record or loving that song or seen that movie because they're like afraid of being exposed somehow.
Hmm.
But there is something really different about truly not having so many of those kind of common cultural keystones as part of your background. And so you're kind of playing catch up double.
Yeah.
Because I think even if you grow up with those markers, you're subtly studying them to make sure that you're not exposed to some kind of fool.
Yeah.
But once you start to become aware that everybody knows what the word funk means or what the word groove means, and like that's not a natural concept to you because your parents don't say those things.
Yeah. You said the word study. I wanna really delve into that because the way I
And you
was.
don't think you're studying, you just
No, I know,
are.
but I just I want to point like unwrap that word when it comes to music. For me, growing up, and I'm an American. I'm that Mayflower guy, by the way. Uh, so yeah, my folks came over partly from the Mayflower, but um, I'm not necessarily studying music growing up. I'm that guy taking it for granted. But because of the way you were raised away from American music, you're studying the music. Do you think that made you have a deeper relationship with the music?
I don't I don't think necessarily.
Yeah.
No. I
Okay.
mean, I think really almost any kid who gets into music, and it could just be, getting into the power pop sugary stuff that your friends are listening to. Like when you hear something and you get into it and you're playing it all the time, you're kind of studying it as part of your exercise in cultural relevance and fitting in
Yeah.
anyway.
Yep.
So I think if you're a child of immigrants, I don't know that you're studying it any harder, because I don't think you're necessarily conscious of that.
Yeah.
You're just kind of like, huh, why don't I know that? And you're 12, or you're 9. Like you're not thinking, especially at that time, you weren't thinking about, we weren't talking about culture with all of this identity and acknowledging intersectionality and all that kind of stuff. We just weren't doing that kind of work yet on
Yeah.
a broad basis. I mean, there were social scientists doing that work, but it hadn't reached us.
Yeah.
And so I think you just think you're navigating it like any other kid.
I love that answer.